All right. Hello, everyone. I'll get started. Just leave the door open for the next few minutes in case more people show up. A very warm welcome to the first AI Queens of Bonn event. Thank you all so much for being here today. I'm really glad that so many of you found their way to our institute tonight. And thank you for making time for this on a Monday evening. I want to start with a practical announcement. You see a cameraman over there in the back, that's Marcus. He's going to be filming the talk. As an audience members, you're just filmed from the back, so you don't have to worry about that. And we won't be filming the Q&A, so you can feel comfortable asking or sharing anything. It won't end up on YouTube until the end of times. So that said, I'd like to introduce myself to those of you who don't know me yet, but I'm really happy to see a lot of familiar faces here as well. That's nice. My name is Rosalie Waelen. I'm an AI ethicist. I work here at the Bonn Sustainable AI Lab as a researcher. The Sustainable AI Lab is a part of the Institute for Science and Ethics, which is a part of the University of Bonn, and that's in this building. I work here at the lab, like I said, as an AI ethicist, and I'm the one who's in charge of organizing this AI Queens lecture series that we're kicking off tonight, on behalf of the Bonn Sustainable AI Lab. So if you have any questions or perhaps suggestions also for future speakers, you can come to me afterwards or shoot me an email. And one of the things we try to do here at the Bonn Sustainable AI Lab is change people's perspective on AI. Because when we think about AI, we have this image in our head of something untouchable in the cloud, something fully automatic that's coming for our jobs. But there's a material and social reality hidden behind this image. Developing AI models requires data centers, requires chips, and those chips require minerals. And to source those minerals, create those chips, and run those data centers, a lot of water and energy is consumed. And in all these processes, there's human labor involved, and often very precarious labor, sometimes even child labor. And why am I saying all this? Because that's one of the images about AI that we want to change, but there's another misleading image about AI that we want to change here at the Sustainable AI Lab and with this lecture series. And that's the idea that only men work in AI, and particularly white, heterosexual men who like programming and wearing black hoodies. And there's a lot of things wrong with that image. To name a few, it might scare young women off from entering the field. Also, programmers are not only men, there's also female programmers, there's queer programmers. Programmers are not only based in Silicon Valley, but all around the world. And nowadays, there are so many jobs other than programming connected to the field of AI. As an ethicist, for instance, AI has been my main research topic for over 5 years now. So I would like to say that I work in the field of AI. And you could be an artist or working as a sales representative or a policymaker in the field of AI. So with this AI Queens of Bonn lecture series that we're kicking off, we want to tackle that narrow image of what it means to work in AI. And the AI Queens events are an opportunity for all of you here to learn about a new topic related to AI and to get to know others in the field that are based in or around Bonn. And that's what we'll be doing afterwards over drinks. And unfortunately, last week's news showed how important it is that we have events like this and communities like this. And of course, I'm referring to Zuckerberg's discussion with Joe Rogan about wanting a more masculine work culture at Meta. So that's maybe something to discuss over drinks later. But so I'm really happy to see people showed up, and I just want to stress it's really important to have a space like this. And just to be clear, I want to say that we understand the term queens in a very broad sense here. I want everyone who made it here to feel very welcome. And I hope that during the reception, we'll get a chance to share our stories and maybe how your work is connected to the field of AI, the struggles you might face in your work or observe in your work field. Yeah, but first we're going to listen to Professor Dr. Toni Loh. Professor Loh is a philosopher and ethicist, since last year a professor for applied ethics at the Hochschule Bonn-Rhein-Sieg. They obtained their PhD from the Humboldt University in Berlin and held postdoc positions in Kiel and Vienna. Professor Loh was one of the first and only ones to take a feminist approach to philosophy of technology. well, the first that I learned about. And today they will tell us a little bit more about what feminist AI ethics might look like. And I'm really, really excited to hear your talk. So thank you for being here, and I'll give you the floor.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here. We'll just start to run my own clock here, because as a philosopher, you know, philosophers can talk like 3 cold winters through and we're still not done. And it's always the same with me. What is feminist philosophy of technology? A short overview. It's actually an input to an input. We will not have so much time to talk about content today, but since I'm only talking for like 20 to max 30 minutes, but since I'm just around the corner, since October 1st, I'm very happy to be here again, or like for a coffee or chat on feminist philosophy of technology or other related topics in the future. So, and also, if you are interested in the slides, because there will be like 30 or more slides coming up, and I will talk about just like a handful of these slides. If you want to read them sometime in the future, please just send me an email and I will be happily sending them to you. So I started with a game during the last semester when I started at the Hochschule Bonn-Rhein-Sieg with my first classes. I started to ask Dolly to create pictures for me for topics that I was going to talk about in the lectures and in the seminars and in my courses. And I gave a lecture on questions of philosophy of technology from October through December. And there was one session where I was going to talk about feminist philosophy of technology, or the relationship between feminist questions and technology in a broad way. And I started asking Dolly for the first slide of this lecture, Dolly, please create a picture on the subject of technology, or as I would say in German, Technics. Technik, which is the German term for the umbrella term, so to speak, for a very differentiated field of different kinds of or different facets of techniques, like technology, techniques, and the like. I will come to that later. So whenever I mean techniques in the broad term, in the German term, like Technik, I will spell out technology/techniques. So I asked Dolly, please create a picture on the subject of technology and feminism. And what came out was like the first one on the left, which was like a very binary and stereotypically female picture. And I was trying to find the philosophy in there. I don't know, maybe the Venus? I have no idea, to be honest. And I was like, well, no, please, let's try that again. And I asked for a second time, Dolly, please create a picture little bit more specific on the subject of feminist philosophy of technology. And again, what came out was like slightly better, but still it was very binary, very stereotypical. At least the person wears pants and not a dress, and she is sitting at a table. I don't know, it's like a desktop computer, sci-fi-ish thing. Again, I was looking for the philosophy in there, but yeah, and well, since 3 times a charm, ask the third time and say, Dolly, please create a picture on the subject non-binary and technology. And what came out was this. And after that, I was like, nope, okay, I've put too many resources and energy into it. And obviously, Dolly doesn't even know what the sign for non-binary, since, well, non-binary is actually with the arrow and the star-ish thing going up, and I don't know what happens down there in the picture, or even above, there's some mystical signs, don't know what's happening there. And again, I'm looking for the philosophy, and the technology is like just in the background, in the way of some matrix-ish digits running thing happening there. I don't know. So yeah, after that I was like, okay, I don't do that again. Maybe I have to create my own pictures for it. But for now, we're here with the agenda. I will start with just very quickly trying to tell you how it all started. You said, like, and I'm delighted by that, but I feel deeply humbled, but I'm of course not the first person who combined feminist thinking and philosophy of technology, but I will tell you a very, very short story how I found my way to this sort of subdiscipline of philosophical thinking. And I think the most important part of this talk today is the second part, where I, in a very classical philosophical way, present my vocabulary to you, my terms, and I hopefully will have time for the third part, the currents. There I will very briefly introduce you to the 5 traditional or classical currents of feminist philosophy of technology in the global north. And I will probably show you just the first slide of the topics of the fourth part. And if you are interested, if you have some questions, I can tell you something about the fifth part, about my own approach to feminist philosophy of technology in the maybe more or less in the time when we have like Q&A or discussion afterwards. So, and again, if you are interested in all of it, then just send me a short email and I will be happy to send the slides to you. I was working as a postdoc at the University of Vienna in the field of philosophy of technology and media together with Mark Köckelberg a couple of years ago, and I just published my second and my third book on critical posthumanism and transhumanism and on robot ethics. So I was deeply into the philosophical subfield of philosophy of technology, and I was, on the other hand, more and more interested in feminist thinking and feminist questions and debates. And I was trying to look for a way to combine both fields of work, so to speak. And of course, there were people, Donna Haraway, for example, who I knew worked so hard and so passionately on question of technology from a feminist perspective. However, I was struggling to find people who was, and maybe I have to say I'm like a very organized philosophical thinker. I always try to find labels for stuff that I'm working on, because I'm a very confused person sometimes, and I try to organize the phenomena that I'm trying to understand, and trying to create labels or find labels or trying to define terms for the stuff that I'm working on and thinking about is for me to try to navigate through this mess that I experience as reality, so to speak. So, but I could not find someone who was like working in a subfield that I was thinking about, like as feminist philosophy of technology, as I would call it later. The only thing that I found was one very, very short article in a German handbook on ethics, edited by Micha H. Werner, Handbuch Ethik, Handbook on Ethics. And there was, I already forgot the name of the colleague. I'm the worst with names. And there was a very short article called Feministische Technikphilosophie, Feminist Philosophy of Technology. But that was the only thing that I could find under that specific label. So what I did in 2018 was to organize a workshop on feminist philosophy of technology at the University of Vienna. And I invited people such as Judy Weitzman and Lucy Suchman and Kathleen Richardson, who was talking about sex robots and her campaign against sex robots. And the result of that was an anthology that I edited together with Mark on feminist philosophy and technology. And within that anthology, that was my first contribution to that, was a chapter on the question, what is feminist philosophy of technology? And in the following years, I published a couple of smaller, shorter articles in German and in English on the same subject and related subjects, are dating apps and sex robots, feminist technologies, and the like. And this is the most current thing. The latest article in English was published last year in a handbook on the ethics of artificial intelligence by David Gunkel. And that is called Feminist Ethics and AI, a subfield of feminist philosophy of technology. And last year, when I started my my professorship at the Hochschule Bonn-Rhein-Sieg, I still managed, I have no idea how, but I still managed to finalize my manuscript for my 4th book. This will be a 400-pager, a book for studying, for lectures, for teaching, but also for the self-studying, for the organization of conferences, of workshops and seminars and courses and the like on feminist philosophy of technology, however in German. Right, so a lot of the stuff that actually all of the stuff that I'm telling you about on the following slides is more or less from that publication, and I hope you understand that sometimes I translated a couple of thoughts because I handed it over to transcript by the end of December, so it's like really, it's out of my hands now, and I'm still like totally in my head within the final pages of this manuscript. So this might be the most philosophical part of this whole endeavor, since what philosophers often do, and you know that, of course, when we start talking about stuff, then we try to define the very basic terms that we are using to make sure that everyone else is on the same page, more or less. So this is what I will do in the next couple of minutes. And I guess the most important slide of this whole talk will be the one with in the subpart 2.4, in the section 2.4, where I define the whole, my whole understanding of feminist philosophy of technology. But starting with the basic definition of the basic term feminism, this is for me an umbrella term, and this is nothing new to you, but just again to bring all of us on the same page. It is an umbrella term for those theoretical approaches, currents, and social movements that are directed against patriarchy and patriarchal structures. And in the brackets, I gave just a couple of examples what I understand to be patriarchal structures, such as cisnormative, heteronormative, amatonormative, mononormative structures, capitalist structures, and others would be included here too. Feminism is decidedly anti-patriarchal as its core. And for those of you who are interested in what the meaning of this strange term such as amatonormativity is, we come back to that later if you are interested in it. But of course, there are numerous different feminist approaches, apart from the idea that all of them are interested in creating or sketching or idealizing a utopian vision of an anti-patriarchal society. There are a lot of different feminist approaches who are different ideas of what anti-patriarchal means. And I, on this slide, show you just a selection of one of the most well-known, sort of most prominent feminist approaches that there are. For example, essentialist or difference feminism, ecofeminism, liberal feminism, socialist or radical feminism, spiritual feminism, post-colonial feminism, and many more. And you see there are five feminist currents that I painted like blue, and these are the ones that I will come to later in the third part of this short introduction, because those are those feminist approaches that are like decidedly interested and explicitly interested in the relationship between society, feminist questions, and technological questions that are cyborg feminism, cyber feminism, technofeminism, xenofeminism, and glitch feminism. So this is a slide that I will probably skip. It's just a very I think it's a very important differentiation between what essentialist feminist approaches are and deconstructivist feminist approaches are on the other hand. Very, very quickly, essentialist feminist approaches think that there are like immutable differences, usually biological differences, cultural, social differences between people and genders. They usually have an understanding of like a binary differentiation between two genders, whereas deconstructivist feminist approaches struggle with that binary idea and think that concepts such as female and male, heterosexual and the like, are in the end social constructions that have lots of power, so to speak, but are not like immutable differences. Okay. I would say that, and again, of course you know that, but just to bring us all on the same page, ethic is a usually academic philosophical discipline among other philosophical disciplines such as metaphysics, logic, and philosophy of language, political and legal philosophy, philosophical anthropology, aesthetics, and others. And philosophy itself is dedicated to a critical analysis of the basic assumptions of being and the self-evident aspects of everyday life. Philosophers question the axioms and first premises of the empirical sciences. And whenever I talk about that, especially with people who are not like studying philosophy for 100 years, I quote J.F. Rosenberg. I think it's his book, Philosophy for Beginners or something. I think his definition for philosophy is very helpful, and I will use it later when I come to the section 2.4. He says, philosophy as a discipline is perhaps thought of most fruitfully as being distinguished by its method rather than by a subject matter. Indeed, one of the initially most striking features of philosophy is the multiplicity of diverse philosophies of various other disciplines: philosophy of science, philosophy of art, philosophy of religion, philosophy of mathematics, of history, of psychology, of law, of language, and so on. And of course, ethics is included in here as well. Philosophy thus takes on the character of a sort of second-order discipline, one which has at its objects of study the first-order activities of the scientist, the artist, the theologian, the mathematician, the historian, the psychologist, the jurist, the linguist, and their many colleagues. So coming to the third term within this combination, feminist philosophy of technology, the technology part. As I said in the beginning, I have a broad understanding of technology. It includes many facets, such as technologies, that means objects, items, techniques, as standardized practices, methods, and procedures, signs, attributes, materials, actions, and probably many more. So in the first step, I would like to define technology as a generic term for artifacts of any kind, as there's an error, as created entities that serve a purpose. But that is just the one side, maybe. The other side, the second step, is that technology is also a concept of reflection, according to people such as Armin Grunwald, whom I'm quoting here. He says, reflection can take place in various ways: as a definition of difference by distinguishing technology from non-technology, as an interpretation of function by specific, for example, anthropological functions of technology, by determining its place in context of action and cultures, and by referring to reproducibility and regularity. So, in a second step, technology is to be understood as a term for a phenomenon of reflection in which artifacts of all kinds are placed in discursive references and are, for instance, socially, politically, economically, morally, or legally contextualized. So, to narrow it down, and this is again a quote from this book, technology is a concept of reflection for artifacts, that mean created entities that serve a purpose of any kind, which are placed in discursive relationships in the context of reflection and contextualization in different ways, for example, socially, politically, economically, or morally. So to bring it all together, and this is a very long quote, but I really do like this kind of narrowing it down on this one in this way. What is feminist philosophy of technology? When we try to bring these three terms together. As feminist theories, that means these approaches, are decidedly directed against patriarchy and patriarchal structures. Ideally, and these were the slides that I had to skip earlier on, but we come back to this if you want to. In a substantive, critical, and reflective sense, these approaches are queer feminist or deconstructive intersectional feminisms that are able to take into account the entanglements of different forms of discrimination and to think of the subject to whom the feminist concern applies in a differentiated and heterogeneous way. You were talking about that in the beginning of today's session, that as the norm of this society is a white heterosexual male norm, and for a queer feminist or deconstructivist or intersectional feminism, this would be questioned, obviously. So therefore, it is important that ideally in the best way, these are queer feminist, deconstructivist, intersectional feminist approaches. If an approach is to be understood as a techno-feminist approach, its primary interest is in mobilizing the emancipatory potential of technology, seeking to raise awareness of specific categories and dichotomies, and problematizing traditional boundaries such as those between the natural and the artificial. The reproduction and stabilization of patriarchal power relations in the given technological and scientific structures, institutions, and production processes is unconditionally criticized. So, second step. And finally, if we want to understand an approach not only as feminist or techno-feminist, but also as a feminist techno-philosophical approach, it does not exhaust itself in a descriptive analysis of the given. That means merely in the first-order objects of investigation, when we think above J.F. Rosenberg's definition, but normatively formulates the premises and first principles of an ethics for a better society, especially with regard to the anti-patriarchal revolution of technology and science relations. So, in the last 9 minutes, coming to the third part of this talk, as I told you before, I will not come to the fourth and the fifth part. However, we come back to it in the questions or in the debate if you want to, or you can read it at home if you are still interested in. Very quickly, I think there are 5 traditional ways to elaborate the relationship between feminism on the one hand and technology on the other in a philosophical or within a philosophical horizon, so to speak. And these are cyborg feminism, cyberfeminism, technofeminism, xenofeminism, and glitch feminism. When you historically want to start with diving into these questions, I would recommend to you that you start with Donna Haraway and the Cyborg Manifesto, because historically, at least in the global north, this is the very first approach that has been defined as specifically approach that tackles technological questions from a feminist and philosophical perspective, whereas the philosophical part was not like explicitly given within the paper. I cannot but philosophically read her approach. In short, she defines an intersectional and constructivist feminist approach in her Cyborg Manifesto. She's primarily interested in information communication technologies, and again, this is a paper that has been published in the middle of the 1980s. So it was very early on, and it's still on point if you read it today. There are still a lot of very current, very actual questions in there that are still very important during these days. She's very interested in cyborg and biotechnologies, and she is also very focused on writing as a technique of what she calls the cyborg. Philosophically speaking, especially the topics of responsibility and a feminist critique of science and a theory of work is what she deals with in the Cyborg Manifesto. She questions traditional dichotomies and dualism such as nature, culture, subject, object, woman and man. Society as a whole is criticized via the phenomenon of technology. So it's not just about specific or individual technologies that exist today or during that time, but the societal structure, so to speak, that is interwoven and entangled with technologies and science norms. She focuses also on the emancipatory power of information communication technologies. It's a critique on the one hand, and it's the understanding that specific technologies open up a new realm, so to speak, of defining and self-identification, and with new experimental forms of gender and the plasticity and transparency of identities. So the main characteristics are, of course, the figuration of the cyborg that she introduces in the Cyborg Manifesto as a critical consciousness for the questioning and merging of categories. Cyberfeminism is actually an umbrella term, so to speak, that was coined during the 1990s from people such as Sadie Plant, Rosie Braidotti, VNS Matrix, it's a collective, and the Old Boys Network. And during that time, it was actually it had a tendency to be very binary in thinking. Sadie Plant had a very schematic understanding of women to be in a certain way and of men being a certain other way. And this tendency that I would now call like difference or essentialist feminist, that has been changed radically during the last years. And actually in the 2000s and up to the current day, it's more and more an intersectional and queer feminist endeavor. If you want to get an overview of the cyber feminist approaches that are there, I recommend Mindy Soy's publication. It's an anthology. It's actually a very complex index of all the cyber feminist approaches and projects from the 1990s on until the current days. And within that cyber feminism index, you can see that there's an evolvement and a development that you can sparkle from the 1990s throughout the 2000s until the current day, that it's now in contrast to these very early cyber feminist endeavors, that we have now examples such as Scavenati cyber feminist indigenous futurism, Clau Kinki's cyber feminist trans-hack feminism, and Irina Aristarkova's Eastern European cyber feminism. And this is quite different from what actually emerged in the 1990s, when people were talking about the cyberspace and the internet and the digital space as a possibly a new realm, a new dimension where women, cis women, could probably define themselves new. That was actually what cyberfeminism was very focused about in the 1990s. And it comes from that first interest to understand the cyberspace, the digital space, as a new realm, especially for cis women, that cyberfeminism since that time is very explicitly and decidedly interested in identity. So from a philosophical point of view, topics such as identity, gender constructions, diversity, and now more and more intersectionality and also responsibility are the most important questions from a philosophical perspective. Right, so the main characteristics are maybe that this is a term for very diverse and changeable movement that places a high feminist value on the digital space. Just one sentence maybe with regard to technofeminism, because Judy Weitzman, who invented that feminist movement with her book on technofeminism with the same name, she is actually working in science and technology studies and has a very specific interest in the past and how in the past society developed and technologies developed, in order to understand the present and in order to get what she would say the right direction to form an anti-patriarchal society. And she does that just in contrast, and very decidedly in contrast to Donna Haraway, which she interprets in her book. And she says that what Judy Weitzman is doing is more or less a constructivist understanding of technology, like the entanglement of technology and the social realm, as she would say, whereas Donna Haraway, on the other hand, is trying to deconstruct the classical and traditional dichotomies of technology and culture on the one hand, and nature and the human on the other hand. So the main characteristics of technofeminism is not so much to sketch a utopian future, as maybe Donna Haraway would do, but on the other hand, above all, it's a historical view, and it's a constructivism instead of deconstructivism. Xenofeminism and the next and last feminism that I would like to introduce you to today, glitch feminism. These are both actually very current examples for cyberfeminism. They understand themselves as cyberfeminists, and on the other hand, they have like also very strong references to Donna Haraway's cyborg feminism. Xenofeminism is self-identifying as a left-wing accelerationism. So that is actually the idea that capitalism can be overcome by beating it with its own means, by accelerating current developments with technological methods. And the Laboria Cubonics collective that published a couple of years ago the Xenofeminist Manifesto, which is open access, available in, 20 different languages, I guess. Politics for Alienation, they call it in English. They define 4 strategies for repurposing technology. So they are not so much into defining new technologies, queer technologies, but they are queering existing technologies. They're trying to reformulate and reuse existing technologies for a better purpose, so to speak. And they are very decidedly intersectional and trans feminist. And on the other hand, they identify as a cyber feminist current. And they are also, you can find them also in the Mindy Soy Cyber Feminism Index that has a complete, like a separate part for xenofeminism, and also for glitch feminism. This is the last feminist techno-philosophical strand that I would like to introduce you to. The most interesting or very interesting part with regard to this feminist strand is that Legacy Russell, who published the Glitch Feminist Manifesto a couple of years ago, is very much interested in art on the one hand, art in the digital realm for most obviously, and body or embodiment, especially again in the digital realm. She tries to criticize the dualism between a somewhat real offline and a non-real online world, and tries to show how art in the digital realm exists and what possibilities art in the digital realm opens up with regard to the inclusion of bodies, and in what ways we can possibly understand bodies new and in a creative way in the digital realm. And also she sees art as a technique of world building, especially again in the digital realm. So this is what makes her glitch feminism so interesting. The main characteristic is a critique of the dualism between online and offline via the moment of the glitch. The glitch is like an error for her. It is what breaks or questions the given structures and the given systems. Wherever there's a glitch, there's like a waking up, or there's a moment of irritation or excitement. And it's always a way to start something completely new. When you know Donna Haraway, Hannah Arendt. Hannah Arendt is not a feminist thinker, so to speak, but Hannah Arendt has this idea of human beings are able to start something from scratch, something completely new, to break out of any structure. And that is actually the idea of the glitch that Legacy Russell introduces us to. So, like 35 minutes, I'm close to the end. No, of course I'm not close to the end, but I will skip all the following. When I started here, I told you it's actually, this is my 200th talk today, and it's always the same. I jump right into it in the beginning, and I swim and I swim and I swim, and after I have to finish, I just stop. I just throw away the microphone and leave, and it's always like, okay, I could have talked about it like a couple of more hours. Just one word with regard to that, because I talked a lot about these 5 currents, right? And there are, of course, a lot of people who are interested in the entanglement of philosophy, of philosophical questions with regard to technologies, and with a feminist background, who do not identify with one of these 5 currents. Of course, there are feminist philosophical questions that arise with regard to specific technologies, even outside of these classical 5 currents. And there are many more topics, but I would say a lot of the times, whenever there are questions that arise with a philosophical from a philosophical point of view and with a feminist background with regard to specific technologies, these are the 4 topics that I found most. Topics such as identity, reproduction, intimacy, and care work. And there are a lot of different works that you could find. I would love to show them to you, but again, if there are questions, I can give you the slides later, and you can have a look at it. Or if you have the nerve and if you can read German, then I would be happy to send you the book. Right. I think I will just stop here. I will just stop. I actually wanted to tell you about 2 future publications where I will present my own approach. This will not be specifically on feminist philosophy of technology, because I work a lot in the discursive landscape of critical posthumanism, as I said somewhat in the beginning today. And I will, again in German, unfortunately, because as you will have noticed, that's I feel very much more comfortable in German. There will be one volume on a critical posthumanist ethics, quickly translated, relational thinking between situatedness, that is a term that I borrowed from Donna Haraway, obviously, process on philosophy and trouble, again a term that I borrowed from Donna Haraway. This will entail the ethical theory, and it will answer questions such as what is critical posthumanism and what is critical posthumanist ethics, what does critical posthumanist ethics represent an alternative to, and why. And then there will be a second volume on like the practical consequences, more or less, for a society that lives by this critical posthumanist ethics. I call it critical posthumanist, living together, being together, miteinander, a relational anarchistic utopia of companionship, and the latter is again a term that I borrowed from Donna Haraway. These are working titles, obviously. And this will answer the question, what do my critical post-humanist ethics look like, and what practical principles of action result from it for society? How would a society living according to critical post-humanist ethics differ from our society today? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
40 minutes, I'm sorry. I'm the worst.
We say goodbye to the viewers on YouTube now.